But you believe in Moses.
He is Moses of this generation.
Okay.
Every generation there's a Moses.
Every generation you believe there's a Moses, right?
Yeah, it has to be because the generation cannot exist without Moses.
Okay. But have you ever studied the Muslim religion at all?
A what?
Did you ever study Muslim faith? Did you study the Muslim faith before?
No.
Okay, so
I started about.
because the thing is, like, Muslim faith and Jewish faith is very similar. It has a lot of similarities.
That's right.
Yeah. For example, like, I'll tell you, like, from the Muslim view, we believe in Allah, right? And Allah is a name. It doesn't mean male, female. It's genderless. Also, the word Allah is not plural. It just means one God.
Yeah.
That's why I was interested, because I was reading this. Your note here, it says believe in one God, and it says Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
And you know what is this? Because you heard about Avraham Avinu?
I've heard that, yeah.
So he is the father of all the Jewish and of all the Muslims.
That's what you believe, yeah. But also when we look in the New Testament, Mark 12:29, the word Jesus came with the same message as Moses. You believe that?
Jesus what?
We believe like Jesus came with the same message. Jesus also said...
No, Jesus only did the miracles.
But did he say also...
to convince people to believe him.
But did Jesus also say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad? Did he tell the people that?
Right. But
he did, right?
He used... Listen. Yeah. Everything he's not coming from the... The Jewish believe there is two sides in this world. There is the side of God, we call it the Kedusha.
Yeah.
There is the side of what's against God. This is of the Tumah.
Yeah.
Kedusha and Tumah.
Right.
Tumah, Jesus used to convince people to believe him. And actually, when he says believe me and not believe God, so this is the Tumah, it's against God. But he used the miracles. And how he did it? By the name of God, because that was the holy place of the Jewish. I don't know how to say it in Hebrew, in English, but in Hebrew we say Beis HaMikdash, what in Jerusalem, originally in Jerusalem. And he get in there and he saw the name of God. His name about 72 letters.
Right.
How do you say it? 72 letters.
Yeah, letters. You're trying to say letters, right?
72 letters.
Or characters.
And he wrote it on paper and put it inside in his leg and something
but
crazy.
Can I ask you about Abraham?
What?
Abraham. Ibrahim?
Yes,
Abraham?
Ibrahim.
What do you believe? Do you believe he was Jewish?
He was the first Jewish because he was the first people, the first one in the world that believed that have to be a God because he tried to war.
But can I ask you a question about Abraham? Because this is interesting. Abraham, he was a prophet, right? Of God?
Prophet?
Like prophet, he came with the message, right? And Abraham had two sons, right? He had Ishmael and Isaac.
Right.
Ishaq. I don't know how you say it in Hebrew.
Yitzchak.
Yeah. And Isaac had 12 sons. Or sorry, Isaac had Jacob, right?
Jacob
and Jacob had 12 sons. 12 sons. And one of his 12 sons, his name was Judah.
Right.
And Judah, you translate that means Yehuda or Yehud.
Yehuda.
So this isn't Judah the one who started...
For all 12 sons.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. Didn't Yehuda start the Israelite tradition, the Jewish tradition?
No.
Because the name Yehuda itself, the word like Jewish... No, what I'm trying to say is, like, when someone says, I'm Jewish, didn't that term Jewish come from him? Judah, so the ones who followed Judah.
Moshiach coming from Judah. The Rebbe, we believe that the Rebbe, he is Moshiach, he is Messiah.
Okay, but how do we know that? According to the book?
Yeah.
And do you believe this book is from God?
I'll explain something about Jesus and about all of it.
But I want to ask you this question too when you get a chance. Like the book that he's mentioned in, which I cannot pronounce in Hebrew, is that you believe that book is from God?
Everything the Rebbe says is coming from God.
But how do we know that?
I'll tell you. I'll give you one proof, and you will understand.
Okay. I'm just asking, like, out of education, out of education.
Sure. Yeah. There is two things that the Rebbe said. Two kind of things two kind of a conversation that the Rebbe talking to the Chassidim, to the people who believe them.
This rabbi.
There is one kind of conversation.
Menachem is his name, right?
Menachem.
Menachem is the correct pronunciation.
Yeah. In Hebrew, CH is Menachem.
So who was your saying of every generation there was Moses?
One kind of conversation is a regular kind, something smart, wow, something clever in the Torah, wow, about what in the Torah we can see that, and Rashi says like this.
Right. Okay. But do we have the Torah today with us?
Yes, of course.
The Old Testament is the Torah?
But there is two Torah. There is the real Torah and there's the lie Torah, you understand? There's the new one, and the new one is the liar.
How do we know which one is from God? Because actually Muslims, we believe there's original Torah too. we have the same belief. Like we believe there's an original Torah given to Moses, but today the Old Testament, we don't believe that's the book of God because it was changed.
It's got to change, yes.
It changed, right?
By humans.
So you agree the Old Testament has been changed, right?
But we say that the Torah is forever. It's something that.
How do we? My question is a little bit higher level. It's how do we know that is my question.
You can find it in the internet.
The internet will tell you.
Yes.
It will tell you what.
You can find it. You can write it in your iPhone. I can tell you what to write.
And what is it, like the book itself?
The book.
Oh, okay. But how do you know that book is from God is my question.
Because the Jewish keep that for older generations.
Could the Jewish kept it?
Father to son, father to son, father to son.
But how do you know that?
That's the history.
History. But historically, can we also prove it?
Because it's got how to say that? Many
translations.
Many huge personality.
Or personalities like
of Jewish talking about the Torah, and you see that everyone talking about the same things. No one can put out something that never saw.
Okay, so like you know the books like Isaiah, right? You believe in the book Isaiah, Deuteronomy.
What is this Isaiah?
The Old Testament. You follow the Old Testament? Because I keep mentioning Old Testament. You know what Old Testament? I'm trying to speak to him about like the Old Testament, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
But he seems to not like.
What do you want to ask?
Well, you speak Hebrew?
No.
Okay. I was asking about the Old Testament, right? I'm mentioning like Isaiah and Deuteronomy and those books, and I'm asking him, does he believe it's the Word of God?
Yeah, because 5 books were given to Moses on Mount Sinai.
Oh, you believe that as well?
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm asking him, I'm trying to. He doesn't seem to be acquainted with the Old Testament.
The nation of Israel witnessed the giving of the law, the commandments.
So what's the difference between your Jewish faith and his Jewish faith? He's more Orthodox, right?
More Orthodox. Yeah.
Well, I have to go. I got.
Okay, my friend. Thank you so much.
Well, good luck.
We could talk.
Yeah.
Then I'll give you. No, I'll give you. Here, have a seat.
Yeah,
What's
sure.
your name?
My name is Mustafa.
Oh, Joel.
Joel?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. All right.
I guess we're destined to talk.
I guess we're destined to talk. But I wanted to speak to him because he's more Orthodox.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can talk to a million Orthodox people who'll get it.
Yeah, and there seems to be a little bit of a language barrier, between me and him.
If you're interested in, I question everything every day.
Absolutely, and I think that's a very humble position.
I question it, but I still maintain my faith.
Okay.
And I will never.
And what I want to do is I want to kind of assess and understand why you hold tight to your faith. What grounds your faith as a person who claims who adheres to the Jewish faith?
I say I'm a very liberal guy and open-minded. I was born a Jew because my mother was Jewish, my father's Jewish. So automatically, if your mother's Jewish, you're considered Jewish.
So let me ask you this. I didn't get your name. I'm sorry. Joel. Okay.
You could have a Jewish mother and a Muslim father, but still the child would be considered Jewish because the mother was Jewish. Okay?
I would agree with that, but do you think
that's how it goes?
Yeah. Do you think that seems to be? Given now that you're older, whatnot, you seem a little bit more liberal. Do you feel like maybe you were indoctrinated or socialized into the Jewish faith a little bit, given that your parents?
Everybody is.
Perhaps, but
brought up.
But don't you think?
In what they
don't you think it's to a point? But I think obviously people when they do more research, they end up.
Okay, I've done research.
So
I've done research, but I'm happy
with what you are.
I am because there's no reason for me to go anywhere else.
Beautiful.
Not only that, but I was born Jewish, and there was a reason for me to be born of my parents of the Jewish faith. Of a male, not a female. I wasn't born to Muslim parents, wasn't born Chinese, wasn't born anything other than who I am.
Can I tell you a little bit of history about myself and how I grew up? So I grew up in a Muslim household. And
here in the city?
Actually not in the city, in New Jersey. Okay. So with some time, I started to question my own faith because for me, I had the ideology that I didn't just want to blindly follow my forefathers, only because I wanted to seek an intellectual humility, disposition of myself, and just let me assess all the world religions and kind of survey what's out there. So I did investigate. I consider myself, I guess, a student of comparative religion. I looked into all the isms, you can name it. That includes all the Abrahamic faiths as well. So the Jewish faith, the Christian faith, the different denominations that are out there, the different worldviews, agnosticism. I had a little bit of an agnostic, timeline, you can say. where I questioned the idea of a creator. But ultimately, after looking into all the isms, the Hinduism,
satisfied with.
I went back and I said, all right, well, the Muslim faith, Islam, is the only religion that tells you and calls you to worship the one true God without association or partnership, whereas every other religion tells you worship God with something, or don't worship God at all. You know, so or just worship a bunch of gods. So that's kind of the
Judaism is only one God.
well, that's the beautiful thing about Judaism, and that's why I like speaking.
There's no one before him.
Well, let me tell you about Judaism. We as Muslims, yeah, the Shema verses.
Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
Let me just finish this one point. Is that I would agree.
That's the foundation of it.
Every time I speak to a Jewish acquaintance or a person, I end up having a beautiful dialogue, only because we share so much, and the idea of monotheism is there. Now, pure monotheism is a whole different discussion, and I would suggest that the Muslim faith is more close to actually pure monotheism, where you worship the one true God without anything, because you know, we can get into like paganism and maybe some paganistic practices practiced in the Jewish faith, but we're not going to talk about that right now. I still feel like that could be something that could contaminate pure monotheism. But we can get into that later. I'll tell you one thing that's beautiful that you just mentioned. Like, if you do investigate the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Quran, as you mentioned, the Shema verses, Deuteronomy 6:4, it says, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, as I was telling, you know, our friend here, which means, you know, hear O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Absolutely agreed with that verse completely, wholeheartedly. New Testament, Mark 12:29, it says same thing.
Stop. Who wrote Mark?
No, I would agree with you. It's a tampered book. It's anonymous. We don't know who wrote it.
We don't know.
We hold that position. I'm sure we would agree on that.
Who wrote the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John?
Absolutely. But here's the beautiful thing is we still see that there's a correlation, and the correlation is there. I believe that, yeah, the Bible is tampered, but I also believe that there is some truth in it.
Bible, you're including the New Testament.
Oh, absolutely. The New Testament more so.
The Bible, the Old Testament.
You don't believe the New Testament is tampered?
Oh yeah, I do.
Oh, you're saying that the Old Testament is not tampered.
The Old Testament is not tampered.
Well, you know, there's the issue of textual variance in the Old Testament also, which kind of deem it, you know, to be a book that has been touched.
Okay.
But ultimately, let me get to the last point, is the Quran has the same message as Mark 12:29 and Deuteronomy 6:4, where it says, وَإِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ, in chapter 2, verse 163, which means your God is one God, your Lord is one Lord. So it seems to be that, you know, all the quote monotheistic faith call you to the belief in one God. That's why when I saw this, you know, little note
That's
here.
for non-Jews.
Yeah, exactly. It said believe in one God.
Yeah, okay.
And I just thought, hey, let me go talk to him about the belief in one God. But for you and I can agree there's one God. I mean, the idea of multiple gods, polytheism, just doesn't fit, you know, the natural position.
In one God is why?
Because it's most logical and most natural. Simply stated. Obviously, there's more to it. The scriptures say it, and I believe the scriptures to be validated and true.
So what is it about Catholicism that turned you off?
Catholicism, they believe in the Son of God. And the Son of God idea would be contradictory to God's nature.
And it's blasphemy.
It's blasphemy because you can't appoint a son to God, because once you take the creation and link it to the creator, it's no longer the creator.
But then again, you know, in their defense, well, God could do anything. He could create son, daughter, millions.
You know what that's called?
Millions.
You know what that's called in philosophy? The omnipotence paradox. Which is a philosophical contradiction.
But it's a possibility.
I'll tell you why that's a flawed possibility, because God has a certain will, right? And he only wills things and allows things to occur that befits him and his nature. So for example, God is transcendent. You know what the word transcendent means, right? He transcends his creation. And therefore, anything that contradicts his transcendental nature is against his will, is something that he wouldn't allow for himself.
So is everybody born of free will?
Beautiful question. I would say that everyone is born as a Muslim with a given free will, but everything is also predestined. That's the Muslim point of view, just to share it with you.